What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with DFS, bringing you a brand new video. Today's video, I'm going over Week 5's Thursday Night Showdown between the Bears and Commanders again. Last year, we had the same thing, Bears and Commanders, Thursday Night Football, but a little bit of differences, right? Different quarterback for Washington, number one receiver for the Bears, but yeah, it's if it's anything like last year's game, I'm going to be very disappointed. Hopefully this game turns out better than some people think, right? The total has been bet up, but 44.5, still not the greatest. Thursday night games still haven't been crazy, so we'll see what it looks like. But as you can see on the screen, I have both the DraftKings prices and Fanduel prices. If you look on the right hand side, I have my key. Blue is like, red is fade, green value, and then injury, which fortunately, as of right now, there's only one player fantasy relevant that we're looking at for an injury status, and that's Chris Rodriguez for Washington. So that's pretty much the only one we're looking at right now. So starting off, Justin Fields, 11K on DraftKings, 17 on FanDuel. So 1,500 more on FanDuel for Fields over Howell, and 1,600 more on DraftKings. So if you're paying up for Fields on FanDuel, just know you got to find value. Fortunately, there's some value out there to go with it, but stacking Howell, Brian Robinson, and Fields tonight is going to be a challenge for you. So hopefully this breakdown helps you. DraftKings, I really like the price, right? 11,000. FanDuel, I like Fields, I do. But that 17,000 price tag is pretty pricey to just fade off of. Go Sam Howell and stack some Washington and then Bear or two. I'd rather do that on FanDuel. DraftKings, I think there's enough value in spots to get Fields and get the DJ Moore, Sam Howell, Brian Robinson combo somewhere in there. So just Fields, right? Averaging almost 50 yards a primetime game, so that's 5 points right there for Justin Fields alone. He had 88 in the game they played last year. Granted, someone like Chase Young wasn't in the game. The secondary is playing really good, but Washington's given up a lot of rushing yards the last 3 weeks to Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. They've been giving up quite a bit of rushing yards to quarterbacks, so Justin Fields hopefully continues to get more design quarterback runs. We see them get a little more comfortable with play calling for Fields, so hopefully it is there. But like I said, I'd rather take the DraftKings price and make it work than the FanDuel. FanDuel, he's getting pretty close to the max, or by max, I mean pretty much 18,000, somewhere around there is the high spot on FanDuel. DraftKings, you're looking at 12,000 above. So DraftKings, I like that price. Terry McLaurin, FanDuel price is very cheap. 12,000 for Terry McLaurin is criminal. Is just criminal. I don't know why he's priced that, but he is. On DraftKings, he is the second most, so I'd lean towards McLaurin on FanDuel. I think him and Dotson are pretty even for me as far as where I have them projected tonight. So I don't mind Terry McLaurin. You could play Terry McLaurin. DraftKings, he gets a full PPR. FanDuel, the half. It's just the pricing is crazy. But I'd rather pay down for Jahan Dotson on both sides. We'll get to him in just a second. DJ Moore for the Bears, 10,000 on DraftKings, 12.5 on FanDuel. I don't mind either price on either side. I think he's the Bear wide receiver that stands out today. The matchup isn't crazy good if you've seen Washington's secondary, but we saw Washington's secondary just get torched by A.J. Brown last week, so that's something else to keep an eye on. And even Stephon Diggs and that Bills offense was able to do a lot against Washington's defense. So over the last 3 games, though, looking at DJ Moore's stats, he's averaging about 7 targets and 90 yards a game. So whether that's 5 to 6 receptions, right, and then the 90 yards, it's hard, it's impossible to predict touchdowns if you're not Christian McCaffrey. So you're looking at about 14, 15 fantasy points for DJ Moore in a game where Bears are 6-point underdogs and they're going to be playing from behind. Look for someone like DJ Moore who gets a lot of targets for the Bears, right? Tied for the most with Cole Kmet. Get some red zone work as well. So I'm okay of if you're not getting Fields, of having DJ Moore, playing him without Fields, right? It's always risky to get the number one receiver without the quarterback. But pricing wise, you're going to have to make it work. I really like Sam Howell though. So going down to Sam Howell, 94, so cheaper than DJ Moore on DraftKings, but second highest on FanDuel, right? It's a great matchup. They actually have the best PFF pass block advantage this week. If you are to fade Fields, you have to have Sam Howell in your lineup. You have to. Bears secondary is really, really hurt. Jaquan Brisker and Tyreek Stevenson are the only starters from the preseason, offseason in the depth chart that are going to be there. That secondary just, it was really bad against Denver. So expect a team like Washington, who just scored 30 points against Philly, to have a really good outcome tonight as well. Sam Howell, both sides, both prices. I'm definitely getting a lot of Sam Howell tonight. Brian Robinson Jr., DraftKings, 5th most expensive player, but on FanDuel 3rd. So that's where that pricing comes into play. He has the most red zone work on the team, most opportunities. So that's something really good for him. I think the matchup's good. The game, right, like last year, was 12-7, I believe. Very ugly game. So Brian Robinson Jr. can get a lot of volume. Might not be able to do a whole lot with him, but he's looked very, very good this year compared to last year. And granted, last year he had the unfortunate accident happen to him, but he's looked really solid this year. And I'm okay with paying up $9,200 on DraftKings 14. He's definitely a guy. Khalil Herbert, right, is a fade for me. He's just too pricey, especially on DraftKings 8,600. It's just way too pricey for me. I'd rather get 3 of these guys, Fields, Moore, Howell, Robinson, than try to get someone like Khalil Herbert in there, right? He's tied with Roschon Johnson in almost all the red zone work, so they're splitting it. And granted, Khalil Herbert kind of took over last week, the running back position, but I just think he's too pricey, right? FanDuel, I can sort of see at the 11,000, but I think there's some guys under 10K this week on FanDuel that I'd rather pay. Like, I'd rather get the Commanders defense and get Khalil Herbert. Jahan Dotson, though, 7,000 on DraftKings, so him and Cole Kmet are pretty much the only higher mid-tier price guys. But 7,000, right? Him and Terry McLaurin are pretty close. Terry McLaurin could have the really big game. Jahan Dotson can have the really big game. They could split it. It's very close to me. I just would prefer Jahan Dotson, especially Terry McLaurin has yet to get any red zone targets. Zero. Jahan Dotson has 4. I'd rather go with that than go with Terry. And Terry could get 4 in this game and they could be tied, right? We're going off of data that we know, data we've seen so far. And Jahan Dotson's been the red zone guy, right? They're not using a lot of Diami Brown. Curtis Samuel actually has the worst matchup, surprisingly, somehow, right? And it's not even a bad matchup. But Jahan Dotson, I could see for the price point just exceeding what I'm allowed to do in my lineups tonight with his price over Terry McLaurin's price. So Jahan Dotson, yes. Cole Kmet is a fade for me. If you look at Washington's numbers against tight ends, granted, look at who the tight ends have been, but still, they've shut down tight ends pretty hard. Cole Kmet's primetime stats are just terrible. Last year, 1 reception against Washington as well. So Cole Kmet is a fade for me. If I get burnt by him, then so be it. He has just not done good in primetime games. Curtis Samuel, right? I'm okay with playing Curtis Samuel, but out of the 3 receivers, he's the 3rd, right? We've seen games where Curtis Samuel has outscored Dotson and McLaurin. It can happen. This could be an ugly game where they use Curtis Samuel in the backfield, right? We've seen that plenty of times. Curtis Samuel getting rushing attempts and then having a Deebo Samuel-esque role of receiving in the slot and then getting some running back usage and getting some yards that way as well. For the pricing, right, he's more expensive than Jahan Dotson on FanDuel. I'm playing Dotson on FanDuel. The pricing is just crazy. But on DraftKings, right, it's $1,400 cheaper if you want to get a 2-stack with Sam Howell and pay $1,400 cheaper for Curtis Samuel. Go for it. I just don't like it. I'd rather get Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin, right? Most people would. The Commanders' defense, I think a lot of people like it tonight, right? Huge sack potential against this Bears offense. We know Justin Fields likes his scramble and stuff, and it results in sacks. He's also on an interception streak. He had an interception against them last year and a fumble against them last year. And remember, Chase Young's in this game. He wasn't there last year. So Commanders defense, 5,400 DraftKings, 9,500 FanDuel. I like it. Logan Thomas, I like him on FanDuel or DraftKings FanDuel. He's a value, right? His price is very cheap. You look at some of the other numbers here: 75 for Antonio Gibson, 8,000 for the Bears defense, 9,000 for Joey Sly. Like Logan Thomas, I'm okay with his price point on FanDuel. DraftKings, I like it. It's not a must-have, but that FanDuel pricing is criminal for someone like Logan Thomas facing this Bears defense. Has a big touchdown possibility. We've seen a lot of targets to tight ends in the red zone, so look for someone like Logan Thomas, Bates to get anytime touchdown tonight. I like those bets. Those are good. But yeah, his FanDuel price is criminally low in this matchup. He should be about 8K. I'd be okay with that. That's a different story of where you want to roster him. But on DraftKings, right, he's mid-priced, right? Just cheaper than the Commanders defense, which I just prefer Commanders defense. Start off with 10, you can only go down from there. Darnell Mooney, just a fade. I like DJ Moore, right? I'm going DJ Moore. I'm going really cheap on the Bears wide receiver. Just got a really tough matchup for Darnell Mooney in the game. Roschon Johnson, FanDuel, huge value, right? DraftKings, you're paying up. You're paying up for Roschon Johnson at 4,800. I'd rather go Joey Sly in this, but you have to remember getting a lot of red zone volume, so something to look out for. Also getting receiving, right, as a running back, and just the way he runs the ball is very tough, and you might need it in a game like this. So Roschon Johnson's definitely someone I'm going to have exposure to. Had a bad game against a really bad defense last week. I get it. But I think this is a good bounce back opportunity for him. I'd rather pay for him than Khalil Herbert, especially on FanDuel. DraftKings, maybe not as much, right? 4,800, but 7,500 for Roschon. I'm okay with getting Roschon Johnson as a paydown. Joey Sly, yeah, I just like Joey Sly. Sly Santos, I don't. Bears do not get down the field too much to give Santos the points he needs. Joey Sly, Washington does get down the field. The chance they do get stopped, right, they get cocky and go for a couple long passing touchdowns, and they just don't get caught or overthrown. Whatever. Joey Sly to get some solid points tonight in this matchup. I think if you're looking for a guy to pay down to, right, obviously you have the Commanders defense. You can have Sam Howell, a big Washington stack. Joey Sly, I'm definitely okay with continuing that stack of Washington players. Antonio Gibson is a value for me just because of his pricing. Obviously, the number 2 running back for Washington, so if something were to happen to Brian Robinson or the game just gets out of hand in Washington's favor, Antonio Gibson could see some more volume, give Brian Robinson a little break. Or Antonio Gibson. I don't know. Going crazy here. But yeah, the volume's just not high enough for me to be a full like tonight. But his price is good. St. Brown, same thing. His price is good, right? He's a value play. He's not someone I'm expecting to have a blow-up game. He gets a lot of snaps. Running routes is totally different, right? But he is on the field quite a bit. So I'm okay with St. Brown, especially with Chase Claypool not there. But yeah, not a huge like. John Bates I have as a value here. Saw 35% of the snaps with Logan Thomas returning. Gets targets, right? He has more targets than Cole Turner. Cole Turner has the 4 red zone targets, so I get that counterpoint too. But a $400 price tag, Obviously, I like Logan Thomas, but I like John Bates as well. I think getting some exposure to him tonight, if you're playing 150s, is definitely worth doing. And then last but not least, we go all the way down to Tyler Scott of the Bears. Minimal price on DraftKings, on Fanduel 6,500, so not minimal there. Claypool's out. Saw 19% of the snaps last week. Looked really good in the preseason, offseason, and has been targeted in the red zone, right? Got more routes run than St. Brown, more targets than St. Brown. So Tyler Scott, to me, is a wide receiver 3 for that team. His price is just ridiculous. If you want a cheap Bear, right, you want to get Fields, you want to get, let's just say, Sam Howell, Brian Robinson, Jahan Dotson. You need a cheap Tyler Scott is there. He's optional. I think in anytime touchdown, his odds are crazy. But Tyler Scott, I'm okay with the $200 minimal tag for the volume that he gets, right? I think he should be somewhere around 800 to 1,000. That's where I think my honest evaluation of him. FanDuel, his pricing is correct. His pricing is right there, so I like that one as well. So hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. We'll have more content coming out throughout the weekend up until Sunday's main slate, so definitely check that out. I will see you guys in the next one.